You can hear the others retract. And then when will the legislation come in? So again, forgive me for being in such a hurry, but let's go to the issues at hand, Tampakan. No? I sympathize with guys in Tampakan, but I also have some suggestions for them. No? One of which is that now we have a problem in there is a lack of coordination between the national and local government. There have been pronouncements that national government has precedence, but it's not being implemented. There is no clear-cut, I don't know if there's any clear-cut jurisprudence, Leo can correct me if there is, what happens when the national government disagrees with, where's Leo? What happens when the national government disagrees with the local government? So you go to court. It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Try to convince the...
Yeah, of course. Of course.
But not the alternative, the only solution is to go to court.
And to the Supreme Court probably on a question of that case.
You have choice, but Supreme Court's the better.
And how long will it take, my friend?
The ice cap story.
So what my contention is, I'm sympathized with Extrata and Tampakan, and the fact that the government doesn't seem to be able to make up its mind. At the same time, I feel that the government has just exposed the tip of the iceberg. No? There are other environmental issues that have not been brought into the open, that will be brought into the open. And this is a suggestion to all mining companies that if there are any possible environmental issues that might be, you deal with them before you start operation. And the only way to deal effectively with them is to start a program of establishing baselines approved by the government. Because the problem is when you come in and you try and comply with the regulations, there's no baseline. You don't know what was the situation before you began operating. And this must be put in the government legislation. What are the baseline criteria? Who sets it? And it must be somebody obviously independent of the mining company. But does the government have the capability to do it? Maybe we can involve the international institutions or even the universities. Put Ateneo chemistry department to work. At least put them on record that the baseline for this area is this. And one of the things I'd ask them to do a baseline with is on the small-scale mining areas, to tell us what the mercury, cadmium, arsenic, etc., heavy metals industries in these areas. No? The tailings dam. People don't talk about it very much, but those in the industry know for us that there is a problem with tailings. If there has been an effective solution proposed for it, start publicizing it because it will be brought up. Now, another problem that comes in, and this will come in again and again, it will come in again when we discuss Philex. We are under certain conditions now which were not there years ago, and I'm talking about the weather. There is no question that climate change has resulted in severe weather anomalies or erratic behavior or set higher volatility of both dry and wet season. No? So, and this is where I will go on record, and I hope I don't get into too much trouble on this. And I feel for Philex. I ran it for 7 years. I was very happy there. I was reluctant to go, but they paid me a price which is much higher than the current price. I couldn't resist the temptation. Now, what's the problem with the Philex problem is, number one is, the Philex position is it's force majeure. The government says it's not. But I feel the government should realize the fact that Philex was operating under a permit which was issued by the government. The sole position, if you're issued a permit by the government, is that you have complied with the requirements. Felix also was being monitored. Ernie, how often was the monitoring being done? Every month? Every quarter. So if Felix was not following the instructions, the compliance, the government had the obligation to warn them or to shut them down before the tragedy occurred. So I am saying, I'm not a lawyer again, but a good lawyer could probably make the case and sue the government. No, for not providing adequate protection, since they're the institution that's supposed to set the standards that complied with the requirements of the situation. Now, the reality is I don't think they're either to blame, because what happened is the weather conditions are such, and June can give you the gory details on this, is that the weather conditions have been completely abnormal. And this is not only true in Felix, in Cagayan de Oro, in Iligan, in the areas which had the flash floods. The United States has taken a very proactive role now. They have pointed out in recent articles that the government realizes that the standards that are being set in the past for infrastructure no longer apply. The conditions are changed. Whose fault it is? Blame God. Because there's nobody else to blame. But then I hate that we go the opposite direction. Like, do you know, the guys heard of the case in Italy on the earthquake? The technical people that did not properly warn have gone to jail. We'll tell Leo Nazareno that he can be jailed for not predicting the... I mean, this is an absurdity, I think, on the other side. But it shows you that we're dealing with different conditions and we must prepare for them. Now, this emphasizes the point for the baseline and the point for standards. And the problem is, again, the next problem of Felix is assuming that they agree on the fine, whether to pay it or not to pay it, and assuming they complete the new tailings pond. I defy you to name me a government official that will okay it. Who will stick his neck out if you're a bureaucrat in government and say that the new tailings pond will not fail? Who will set the standards for the new tailings pond? Will they bring in a team of foreign officials? Will they rely on them? They certainly don't have the capability to set it themselves. But this is the thing that we have to look forward if we want look forward to if we want to get over this basis. We have a government that is sincere. At least many of them are really sincere. They see no reason why we should sacrifice certain areas to mining rather than tourism, etc. Of course, the only basis of opposing them is to show them that it's better this way. But still, we have to accept the fact it's a matter of choice. We cannot force the government to follow us as far as allocation of resources is concerned. It's their country, it's their resource. We can call them all sorts of names. But if they don't want us, we have no recourse but to go somewhere else. To give you an example of the way I look at it, in the past 3 years, I haven't set up any operation in the Philippines, but I've set up one in Myanmar, Mongolia, and Sierra Leone. And started 2, but I pulled out unsuccessfully in Laos and Cambodia, no? Okay. But again, we go now to the next and last, and actually the most difficult problem that is mutually faced by us and small-scale mining. We all know that small-scale mining is the source of a majority of our gold production. But how does the government react to that? It tries to spare, when the furor came out about the drop of production, the smuggling, what did Kim and Ari say? They should pay because they make money. She doesn't seem to realize that those guys that they were trying to tax were the traders, not the miners themselves. And their margin, I don't think, can make that percentage. Their margins are not that great, the traders. At least the traders that go to the central bank. And there may be several levels of them. The ones that buy directly in the area because they have clout in the local area, for obvious reasons, are able to buy at lower prices from the miners. But once they get it, it doesn't go directly to the central bank or to the other bank. It goes through maybe one or two, maybe there are certain levels of traders. And the margins on the last one are so small that if they pay the tax, their profit would be gone. That's the reason they don't sell to the central bank. Because people smuggle because there is a reason to smuggle. If there's no reason to smuggle, you go to the authorities. What I'm saying is they're going to have to face the issue and have to face it squarely. But but we've known about it for years. Why haven't we done something about it? We know that in the areas that we operate as established mines, there are a lot of small-scale miners. Why? Because we don't want to antagonize the local government officials. But it's going to be a matter between us and them. The government must be made to realize that the only way to control the small-scale miners is either to provide them the means to do it effectively, which they cannot, or to put them in some way under the supervision of the larger mining companies, the responsible ones, that would police certain areas, give them supervision so that they wouldn't, and make sure that they mill their ore properly. But I don't see that happening. Because up to now, large areas in this country are still mining. Paracali area, that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's a very large amount of gold coming out of that area. And if the local government officials tell you that they don't know anything about it, no comment. They have access to explosives. Where are the explosives coming from? They're not coming from the mining companies because there are no mining companies with explosives in that area. Small-scale mining. This thing of confining activity to Minihang Bayan is something which I have my doubts about. Who's going to supervise it? Government doesn't have the capability. Okay, go next slide, please. We'll go directly to the prognosis. Go next. There is a global need for metals and minerals. We have all the indications here. There will be resource depletion. Our question in the Philippines is, do we want to be a part of it or not? And that's a question that we have to face government with. We cannot be enticing them from one side of the mouth to invest at the same time, removing all the incentives for staying here. And again, the prognosis. I am very uncertain about this. Increased government share, how much? I think the industry has to come out with a template, maybe a variable taxation rate for various types of mines, or I don't know, or some innovative idea. But I don't think the government is capable of coming to it by itself, no. But we have to work harder at this, care for the environment. Well, this is something that I think, in fairness to the mining companies, we're working on it. Now, the last two, consistency between national government, LGUs, this is something that is uncertainty. So we now have the prognosis, too much uncertainty, and in the newspaper it came out that the BOI, I think they're reducing their projections by half. That might even be too optimistic, no? The recent events. We're referring to the perks and tax exemptions were recently approved with regard to a coal mining company that doesn't even have proven reserves. But what's the reason this happened? They are going to mine, and I would say, I'd say 90% of the area would have to be underground. Yet they are not subject to the same restrictions. I'm also on that side of the fence, no? So I'm going to be castigated by my cohorts of why open the doors, no? But I feel that things should be handled rationally and equally to all our parts of the industry, no? Why is the coal mining industry exempt? Now, central bank wants to reconsider the 7% tax. The basic problem is, do you have a structure that will take the place of the traders? If you don't, you have to live with it if you want to get it. And if you want to get the volume, you have to make it a livable equation for them, or it will continue to be smuggled out. One-stop shop. How can you have a one-stop shop when various units of the government do not agree? You have the regulatory agency, what do they call it now, June? The ones regulating. The MICC, several of the members I know personally, they're good people, but they don't like mining, okay? There's nobody in that agency that is pro-mining. Nobody. Except perhaps, I don't know, is Purisima part of it? But if he is, he's the only one, and he wants his pound of flesh. You have to determine what that is. It's not a matter he likes the industry, he just looks at it as a source of additional revenue, and if he doesn't get the revenue, he won't go with it, no? Now, the no-go zone, the other one that happened, again, the newspaper the last couple of days was no-go zone in the Philippine Military Academy. I think today's or yesterday's newspaper. That area is underlain by one of the richest deposits that I know of here. At Philex, we were trying to get it for years and years. It's a porphyry copper, very high-grade gold and copper. We've known for it for years. We tried to get it out of the government. We ran into snag every time. Now they're now closing it to location on the basis of its unstable slopes. But at the same time, they want to allow the small-scale miners to operate there. I mean, what kind of consistency is that? One of the things about the EO is defines how you can put certain areas. There's also other factors. We'll just go through the next slide. Just 60%. Okay, Felix mining appeal. So I'm saying that the Felix, let's just shut it down now. I say the Felix case is going to be a test case for the entire industry. There have been suggestions by some that Felix should just pay the fine and go away. That should be a big disservice to the mining industry. Because and also it would be very dangerous for Felix to just pay the fine. Because unless there was an assurance that the new tailings pond would be approved. Because the rationale for just paying the fine would be they can recover it in so many months of operation. But it would set a precedent that that you could never use force majeure to explain any violation. You would be in effect guaranteeing to government that any structure that you have will withstand nature's wrath, no? And one of the things that I think that we have to bring out to the public and to our people is the fact that we should not look at ourselves just as the mining industry. We should look at ourselves in the totality of institutions that do affect the environment. My contention, and I've become very unpopular in certain other forums, is that when I was in a forum where they were against carbon, addition of too much carbon, I suggested one method in which they could reduce carbon emissions tremendously, and that's to kill every living animal on the face of the earth. No? Since we breathe in oxygen and expel carbon dioxide, this would cut the emissions down. At the same time, I said we'd have a problem with the volcanoes, no? How to keep them from emitting. Now, what I'm saying is that the people should realize that any development in some ways damages the environment. Every time we build a road, a bridge, every time we plant crops, every time we build a hotel, we in some way damage the environment. The thing is to set the standards of what is acceptable and what is not. Now, they have set it for some instances, but they have not set it for mining. So our homework is cut out for us if we want to move forward. But my fearless prediction is whatever we do, you won't get any new permits for at least 3 years. On that basis, I'd thank you so much for the opportunity of addressing this group. And I hate to sound so pessimistic, but I don't want you to be wasting your time and effort on something which doesn't have a reasonable chance. I'm not saying that miracles can happen, but I'm saying that probably one is not probable in the next 3 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. It has to be the clearest presentation on our situation that I've heard since the situation changed.
My name is Steve Hill, Philippine Resources Magazine. The one word you didn't mention, or I don't think you mentioned, was election. How do you see the next change of government? What do you see as the possibilities there, and do you think it might change things?
You know, a wise man once said it's very difficult to predict, especially about the future. No, but seriously speaking, it depends a lot on what we do in the interim before it, no? Because at this point in time, the anti-mining people have won the perception battle to the public, to the majority of the public. Every time I go to a church where I know I'm very well known there. I've been going there for so many years. And even up to now, people approach me and ask me to sign petitions for stop mining in Palawan, stop this, stop that, no? And these are good, these are decent people, no? So and one of the things we have to do is we have to start identifying politicians, the younger ones. Hopefully there are some, maybe Leo can give you pointers on whom to identify, no? To appeal to, not to bribe, but to appeal to, and then to get the universities, various universities, helping us work on setting up baseline and helping set us up solid economic basis for saying that mining is better for us than any other things. We must show it in terms of data, not in terms of rhetoric.
Sir, I was one of your underground operations mine engineer in Felix before. So, I'd like to ask about the baseline. When you talk about the baseline, you mean the environmental baseline, sir? Sir, because I think, like for SMI, I think they do have the environmental baseline. I think that forms part of their application for an environmental compliance certificate. And I think we have standards like the air quality, water quality, and different levels of like heavy metals. I think what some mining companies should understand is that the baseline would be there to protect you.
Yeah.
So if you have the baseline, if you have these environmental baseline, you've made your environmental baseline profiling. And initially, before you were even there were already high levels of mercury. And if that changes as you go through your operations, then that would be a great help for your company.
I agree with you. It's very good to mention that. But the point I'm making is those baseline studies should be validated and accepted by government before you operate, because there might be some question later on. They say they never formally approved it, and therefore it's not acceptable, no?
Yes, sir. So I think that those are one of the things. Plus, one of the other things, we used to have a coal project in South Cotabato, and we were given an ECC despite the fact that there was a ban in open pit mining declared. So that is one of the questions that I want to raise. Why the ECC was denied for SMI when our project was given an ECC just with conditions that we cannot operate until there's a lift from the ban. So I think there's a problem with LGU or I don't know about Secretary Pahe, but sorry, but
I agree. Okay.
so thank you, sir.
My name is Harvey Campos. I'm representing Stimulus Capital Ideas. I have an Australian partner trying to explore possibilities for the Philippines and vice versa. I read the EO 79 just a couple of days ago, and there's a provision in Section 8 which states that there will be a team who will be studying the possibilities of value-adding activities and the development of downstream industries. So this might be a possible link that we can create a positive image. Can you say something about any updates? Because they have a deadline of 60 days after the signing of the EO 79 of July 2012.
It's finished.
It's supposed to be finished, so it's supposed to be September.
They're all good, but the problem is there are no specific criteria on which you can gauge whether you will comply or not. They're all motherhood statements that they will do this, do that, but there are no standards. And in the absence of standards, you never know whether you'll get approved or not. That's the basic problem. We have to pressure them to come out with specific standards so that if we comply, we get our permits. Otherwise, we will forever be in this state.
Yes. Doctor, I think it's also good to see that the motherhood statement can produce some children. And creating opportunities for collaboration, like creating shared value, which Harvard Business Law has been trying to propagate since the past few months, wherein private and public sector work together with the civil society organizations and come up with a win-win solution. Maybe that can be a starting point or mustard seed that can continue to grow.
My contention is that anything we submit will not be acceptable to government if we just submit it as industry. That's where we have to get the institutions which appear to be well-meaning, like my friends in Ateneo, challenge them. What are the standards that you expose? And debate with them on it, come out to, and we have to get government to approve that. And that's where the problems begin. No? But we should stop wasting our time attacking their, you might say, their motivation or their intent. because this is where I really sincerely feel the situation has changed over the past few years. Before we were getting nuisance and ignorance, now we're getting much more rational opposition, no? With the exception of a few whose name I will not mention. No?
A complimentary statement regarding your talk. Basically, what I noticed, and I've been noticing this in the past, is that there's no clear-cut relationship between the policymakers as well as the industry. In the petroleum industry, of which we are also an active player, we have the PAP. We try to streamline all guidelines. We try to discuss positions and papers before anything comes out in the public. Apparently, what I see in the mining now is that each group has its own position, and that when they come out, they usually go antagonistic against each other. What I think is not working is that the mining chamber that we have does not have a good relationship with the regulatory authorities. I think if they just could go together, sit down and discuss the policies before they come out, because they need to come up with one position. They just need to come up with one position that the public will appreciate, rather than for each of this group to come up with different position that will end up fighting the public. In the petroleum industry, we usually get the government informed. We usually get them. They are made aware of what the problem is and what are the solutions, and we give them the options so that they can say that, all right, we take option A or B or C, and then we move from there. Right now, we don't have that in the mining. I don't think we have that. If we can only tell Bureau of Mines all that are currently happening in the field. For example, these guys in the Bureau of Mines are bureaucrats. They have not. I don't think they have any experience in working in the field or in the corporate world. So that the bottom line is that you should get someone who understands how a corporation works before he can regulate. Because the relationship is that we work as contractors to the government. At the end of the day, we are at their mercy because the state owns these mineral properties, just like the petroleum. So we can just be here, continue barking, but at the end of the day, they have the last say.
Thank you, Engineer Apostol. I have only one comment to that. The reason that the petroleum sector is doing very well is that the agency regulating it is not called the Department of Environment and Energy.
Excuse me, in addition, I think one thing that we need, and I'm glad that Leo mentioned that we have a potential in this young congressman, senator that we talk, is we need a champion.
He has a sister by the same name.
Yeah. No, we need somebody in government to champion the industry. We need to identify somebody, develop the relationship. And it doesn't have to be a financial relationship. What I'm saying is you find somebody that really we can convince, bring on our side, that can articulate our position, then I think we'll have made major progress.
Well, unless there's any urgent questions, time is about up. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here till about 2:30.